ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, having served on the NCLAT, what systemic challenges continue to affect insolvency adjudication in India?
Yeah. So before we go into the systemic challenges, let us understand what the ground reality is first today. Today we have some sort of a legal crisis, I can say, because the statistics say of 2024 show that almost 7.48% of our nominal GDP is locked in disputes in these commercial tribunals. And in NCLT, again as per the statistics, almost 13 lakh crore cases is locked in disputes, which is again 3.39% of our nominal GDP. I won't call it today a legal problem. It is more of a macro financial risk as stated by the RBI. And how did we, come here? And this is one of the systemic challenges we face today. This is because of the historical mismatch. What has happened, we have tried to implement a very sophisticated 21st century law through architectural design which is antiquated. It is not yet designed to cope with today's needs. As you can see, Justice Iradi Committee has recommended, and then the IBC came into existence in 2016. There was a revolutionary shift from debtor in possession to creditor in control. But then this revolutionary shift did not have a corresponding revolutionary change in the tribunal infrastructure. So if you see the infrastructural and the institutional, challenges which, as a member of NCLAT also, which I had worked there for 4 years, both in Delhi and in Chennai, which we had see, for example, in NCLAT Delhi and in Chennai, we have only one steno cum, PA cum, PS cum typist. So if that one gentleman, he or she is absent, we find it very difficult. I used to almost type my own judgments in such circumstances. Because 88% of the staff in NCLAT and 85% almost in NCLT, I don't know if the figures have changed in the last 1 year, but it would not be substantial. They're all contract employees. Yes. They're not permanent employees. So here it is not just a staff challenge. It's like, institutional amnesia, in the sense that if the contract ends, the training ends, the knowledge ends, the experience ends, and the entire effort and time that we're put in training them, again we're back to square one. Not only that, but one good thing is, the government has recognized and realized that we have to strengthen the infrastructure, increase the number of benches, and also, a timely appointment of members is also very, very essential. Another systemic challenge which we face is, why this institutional capacity should be increased, not just in terms of number of benches, not just in terms of, human capital. See, what happens is, there are a lot of IAs which are filed, and today there is a very suboptimal way of dealing with these IAs, because again we have a shortage of staff, shortage of members, and there is another very important thing. Apart from increasing this institutional capacity, we should also find some way of putting checks and balances, like gatekeeping checks. We also have another challenge which we have to face, these behavioral challenges. They just discussed that in the conference today. We have these recalcitrant promoters. Yes. They want to control, they want to get back their company. So they file vexatious applications, litigation. So, we have to have some sort of strong costs and penalties to deter these meritless appeals. So this is another behavioral challenge which we face. RP should be trained. So these are all, change doesn't come in a day. And the government is doing its best to balance things. So let's hope that with the next amendment some changes will come into force.
Yes, connected to what you just said, do you think the balance between speed and substantive justice under the IPC has been appropriately struck?
We are trying to bring about a balance between speed and substantive justice. For example, in the waterfall mechanism, operational creditors get almost nothing. But then again, the government with the proposed bill is trying to do something about it. The home buyers also, operational creditors and home buyers, they don't enter into very comprehensive and sophisticated contracts. So you see, so they are the losers. But then again, with amendments that is being corrected. Speed, as we already discussed, it will be achieved through amendments, through increasing the number of benches, timely appointments, increasing institutional capacity. But now change is underway because as they just discussed, the bold and beautiful IBC Amendment Bill 2025 is shortly going to be enacted. And in what happened earlier was there was some discretion given by the Vidarbha judgment, wherein the bench some discretion was given to the bench, even if there was a debt and default. Now the wording has changed from may to shall. So if there's a debt and default, the adjudicating authority should admit the application within 14 days. So all those mini trials, the time that was spent in the tribunals, that can be done away with. So it's also related to speed and substantive justice.
Yes.
Then another point which I wanted to tell you was, see, now this new CIIRP, that is the creditor initiated insolvency. Suppose a financial creditor has, say, 51% of the voting consent, then they can initiate the insolvency without the tribunal intervention. Again, there is less value erosion. They come to the tribunal only for the approval of the plan under section 31. So this again saves time. Again, there will be substantive justice in terms. When they come for the plan approval, again there is a very interesting amendment proposed. That is that the adjudicating authority will first give the plan approval, and the company will get back on its feet and continue as a going concern. The distribution aspect comes later. So the distribution disputes can be decided, I believe, in 30 days. So then the company's revival is not connected with its, creditors' outgoing disagreements, payment disagreements. So this is a very important one. It will lead to speed and substantive justice. Then last one, where I feel that the government has really, thought about this whole framework is about hybrid insolvency, cross-border insolvency, group insolvency. It's all being, taken care of in the proposed amendments. And the academy, like, ILA today, even in this conference, they have done extensive research and presented papers even for the future, what we need to do, like climate change and insolvency, bank insolvency, then municipal debt restructuring, like that. And regarding speed, even digital transformation is extremely important. We need to digitize, because that would save, like if you have e-filing, end-to-end e-filing, the registry will save time of, say, 20 to 30%. And even in terms of, like the Supreme Court has that AI-assisted tool. It's called Legra, I think, if I remember. So this is a legal research tool. When a complicated case come to NCLT or NCLAT, a lot of time is spent on manual research. So that can also be cut down by, say, almost 30 to 40%. So this digital, digitization is also extremely important.
And that is really insightful. Again, on similar lines, what reforms, procedural or institutional, would most improve appellate insolvency outcomes?
See, this is again very comprehensive. Apart from what I have said in terms of the government, going in for this insolvency and bankruptcy code amendment, the bill. Recently, the Supreme Court has set aside the Tribunal Reforms Act of 2021 in the Madras Bar Association judgment. And then it said you have to go in and establish a National Tribunals Commission. So this National Tribunals Commission would centralize the entire, system and administration, bring about more judicial dominance in member selection, and again, as we said, the human capital part. So there would be uniform funding, and it will also take care of digitalization. So a centralized system like this by way of National Tribunals Commission will go a long way. Then, but then when you ask me what exactly has to be done, it's extremely comprehensive. We should also learn from other countries, like say Singapore. So firstly, establish the National Tribunals Commission. Then we enact the bill, the proposed amendment bill of 2025. Then you invest in permanent, specialized, trained human capital. Then you go in for digitalization. And lastly, we should also embrace this multi-door resolution, which the other countries have established. So we have a long way to go. Rome is not built in a day, but then we are taking baby steps towards it because we're just 10 years old. Conferences like these, organized by Insolvency Law Academy now and chaired by Mr. Sumant Batra today. It's a 3-day conference. It really helps the delegates and the stakeholders because we get to interact with delegates from all over the world. Like yesterday and today, we heard participants from USA, UK, Australia, Austria, Malaysia on different topics, and so it helps us to think out of the box. And Mr. Sumant Batra, who is an author and also involved in policy making, has chosen such subjects which are extremely useful for restructuring and insolvency law. So I'm really happy to be a part of this conference, and holding such conferences even in future would help in policy making. And when you asked about speed and substantive justice, it's all a part of achieving that goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.